Hello everyone. When I told my granddaughter that I was going to do a YouTube of my Huswif, she said, well Nan, you've got to make it fun and you've got to make it exciting. And I said, well, I'm more about just giving the information and getting off there as fast as I can. I first started doing YouTube videos back in about 2014 when my cousin asked me how to do something, and the easiest way for me to show her was for me to video what I was doing and post it so that she could then find it whenever she needed. I developed a binding tool, and my friend Trish, who actually made me the binding tool, would always ask me, how do I do it again? So we created a video together of how I did it so that when I left town, she still was able to have it. I miss our times of having cups of tea and sharing our sewing together, but we can still talk on the phone and share our sewing skills over Instagram. So today I'm going to share with you how I've made my Huswif. A few people have asked me how I do that with my little drawstring bag. So I'm going to share the process, where I started from, and how I got to where I am now. I first started with this sewing roll pattern by Brigitte Giblin back in October last year. I made it up to the pattern, but then found that I wanted to add some different elements myself. Sometime a little bit later, she put out this pattern for a continuous thread roll. So you can thread up several needles through and with your cotton through, and it will pull through, so that if there's times when you can't see to thread your needle, they're already threaded for you. So I made that to go into mine. Here, and what I did was I used her medium size pattern, but I took 1 inch off the top section here because I didn't want it quite as long inside my sewing roll Huswif. So I added that, and I added my drawstring bag. The elastic pocket at the other end, I did the same as per her pattern, and this was the pattern as well, that it just had this left with no pocket or anything on it, and I thought that's the way it needed to be to fold it. I thought it would be bulky if that was folding over the front. This one I made with a pattern from Treehouse Textiles. She made a tool roll, and I turned mine into a sewing roll Huswif. Just a little pin cushion. You can use any kind of pin cushion you want. And then on my next one, when I started doing it for the Roxy's Journal of Stitching, I did all this great stitching, some pieces by my father's auntie there, but I did forget to make it the extra length when I wasn't putting on these ones. On the original pattern, it had this section added on. So I didn't add that on, so it became a small one, and I put the pocket on the flap section, and I felt that worked fine. Still with my drawstring in the middle, a little pin cushion, and a place for some needles. And my current one, which I absolutely love using, again has the elastic pocket on this end, pin cushion, my needles. I think there's one threaded up there. She might have come unthreaded. So what you do is you thread all of those needles with the thread, and then you just take the last one and your thread will pull through your needles. And my drawstring bag holds, when I'm not got this right in front of me, and it's maybe on a table and I'm a bit further away, I like to use my ring needle pin cushion when I'm doing hand piecing, that works really well for me. Some thread, some scissors, and a thimble, and they go all into there. I find then when I'm sewing, I can just toss my scissors into there without having to put them into something or tie them up when I'm finished. I'm often stitching out and about, and I like to go quickly and roll up my bag. The outside of this one is bits and pieces of things, stitching, and again on this one you can see that I've got pretty much straight lines because I had to draw them and be not abstract with it. The way I make my little drawstring pouch for the middle there is it's 8 1/4 inches this way and 4 1/2 inches down the length, and I cut 2 inches out of the corner to box the corner, and then it becomes pretty much like a little square bag. On my casing pieces are 2 inches by 8 1/4 inches. I fold it under 1/4 inch and iron it, and then fold it over another 1/4 inch and stitch down there. You can stitch down there by machine or by hand. On this one I've just stitched down on the machine. Once you've stitched your second row over, iron it in half and center it on the outside piece of fabric. I like to stitch it across and then sandwich the lining. So this one here I've already stitched with my outside of my lining sandwiched. Then I fold them out, and now we'll just pretend this one is done, because if I go and use my sewing machine, the light on the sewing machine is so bright that you can't see what I'm actually sewing. So I put my lining and pretending these are sewn up, and I start stitching from the outside edge, stitch in 3 stitches and back stitch, and then come along, and then I scoot over and stitch up the side, scoot over again across the bottom, and scoot and up this side and come back, and I then stop stitching about 1 1/2, 2 inches from where I started stitching, again stitching out to the edge. That then, when you go to stitch your linings closed, when you go to stitch your linings closed, your seam stays nicely under, it stays in place, folds in really well, so that then you can just stitch your opening closed. And this is what it'll turn out like once you've then boxed your corners by just bringing the two together and stitching across. It'll turn out like this. The actual drawstrings, there is a separate video of how I make drawstrings like these, or you can use, like I've done on this one, I just twisted some cord, some pearl 5 cotton I used on this one, and just did twisted cord. Then you thread your cord through, starting from this side, coming all the way back around, then going to the other side and coming all the way back around. They'll end up like, this one might be easier. They'll end up like this, and you just pull them and it closes. And this one I also added the pocket onto this end, and I find that it works quite fine to fold up. All I've got in there at the moment is a few bits for my gosling quilt, but if I'm out stitching and I've got a couple of pieces, I can just pop them into that side and they won't blow away on me. In this end I keep parts of projects as well. There's some tiny trip around the world blocks, just one all popped in there, just in case I run out of stitching sometime. That's always there for me. I also like to keep in there a thread bin. All my bags and projects have a little thread bin that go with me. When I'm using it on my Huswif, I fold down the top and just sit it in there somewhere. If you've got a needle minder or a couple of magnets, I might put those, one on the top and one on the bottom, and then it'll hold it in place for you while you're out and about. And then when you're finished, just folds up and pops back in there. And there we go. Thank you for watching, and hope that might have answered some questions. Thank you.